is about how technology is changing property management and how to use it to improve your portfolio. Ultimately, I want to spend this time kind of talking about, common practices of what property managers and owners are currently doing in the industry and kind of where we're going in terms of technology. I also have Austin Brooks on the call as well, who is a co-founder of the company and also has a background in real estate and real estate management. So, we'll just spend a few minutes introducing ourselves and then we'll get into the content. So I'm Alex. I'm one of the co-founders of Rentroom. My background is in technology, more specifically product management. So I kind of do run all of the product work over here at Rentroom. And over time, I've led go-to-market strategy, software development, things like that. And about a year and a half ago is one company, and then that's when Austin and I kind of put our heads together to build something for the industry. And Austin, if you would introduce yourself and your background.
Sure. First, want to thank everyone for joining. We appreciate it. It's definitely an unprecedented time out there. So my name's Austin Brooks. I founded Amicus Properties. I've started investing in real estate about 7 years ago. We own and operate a portfolio of 160 student housing properties, predominantly in Charleston, Savannah, New Orleans, and Providence. As a student housing landlord, this is obviously a very tricky time. All of our campuses have been shut down. A lot of the students have left to go home. We do sign 12-month leases. So I'm sure later on in the presentation, Alex, we can talk about kind of what our strategy is for collections and how we're communicating with tenants. But one thing I'd also like to say is whoever has joined the call, we'd like this to be a conversation. So if you guys have questions at any point, happy to answer them kind of fluidly and kind of start from there. Alex, is that good?
Yep, that works for me. And since when you guys join the meeting, you automatically go on mute. If you want to speak or answer a question, just make sure to unmute yourself. That'd be great. So cool. We'll get into the content now. So this presentation is really about kind of the evolution of technology and property management and kind of, right now, the space that we're in, there's many different ways that kind of landlords can operate within the realm of technology. The first being manual. Obviously, that comes down to collecting cash or checks for rent payments. Tenants are delivering these in person or sending through the mail or, dropping them in a Dropbox, things of that nature. And then most communication is done predominantly by email, calls, text messages. And then promoting the properties can be many things, but mostly just kind of classified ads to promote the rentals and kind of get a new crop of tenants in the door. Then you kind of step up a little bit of a notch, and then you're kind of getting into the realm of technology with online payment providers, specifically person-to-person apps such as Venmo, PayPal, Zelle. These things are good. That being said, they're not, rental purpose. They're not really built to be collecting large sums of money, and it can sometimes be a hassle to get large sums of money out of those platforms because they impose kind of strict limits on deposits. And then still kind of doing it the old-fashioned way with most communication going through phone and email. And then you may start to see, rental listings going through Zillow, Trulia Hot Pads, all that stuff being uploaded and updated manually through Zillow's rental network. So that's kind of Web 1.0. And then moving along the right-hand side, more like Web 2.0. So management companies using kind of like auto pay through a management website to collect rent online, and typically a portal for communications. The best example of this kind of in the marketplace is Building Link. They do a good job of everything from, communicating with tenants, blast communication, kind of having message boards and things like that. However, it doesn't come across as an all-in-one solution. And that brings us to kind of the third and final web iteration here, which is all-in-one platforms for the property management industry. So that's rental payments through mobile apps specifically, not just through a web backend portal. As you all know, tenants are mobile and they're looking to pay their rent while on vacation or when they might not be near a computer. So that's an important aspect to this. Also back-end accounting software to manage your books. Ultimately when rent is being paid online, it is great to have kind of back-end accounting reports updated in real time and updated automatically. So you don't need to kind of manually mark these payments. And then kind of the last tier here is conducting credit checks, being able to dynamically generate leases with different kind of fields that can be generated automatically, and of course marketing tools to promote vacancies, which is also becoming increasingly important, and especially with things like Zillow, Trulia, HotPads, and their network becoming paid services and really expensive paid services. It's always good to be looking for alternatives to be able to operate in a marketing capacity, but also keeping costs under control. So that's kind of the landscape as we see it. And then kind of we think that all-in-one solution is what's kind of going to be carrying the industry forward for the next 5 to 10 years. And so obviously property management sits at the center of everything from rent collection, leasing, property accounting, maintenance. And so it's tough to have different tools that do rent collection and then marketing and then having a different tool for maintenance. So we find that all these things are complementary to each other and ultimately need to be in one spot.
Yeah, Alex, if I could jump in there.
Yep.
Something from our end that we feel is really important is one, a direct line where you can communicate with large amounts of tenants. That's been something that's been really helpful for us during this crisis. Kind of whether it's sending them messages about move out instructions, kind of how we're handling this, the access to our property managers, but also really importantly, having it under the same platform where you're collecting rent. Because a big thing for us is taking the friction out of rental payments. We want to make it as easy as possible for them to pay. Because especially at times like this, when, if someone was accustomed to writing a check, that's just a lot more difficult right now. Or if they're on a web portal, it's not as easy as having it right in the hand and having a notification sent to them saying, hey guys, we hope that you're all safe. Just want to remind you, rent's due April 1st. If you have any questions or you need to be set up on a payment plan, please message us and, we'll work with you. Just like having that level of concern and care. I think, we'll see, but that's our main strategy on collections at this point. And, up until now, before this, instituting this platform for us has on average given us about 10 extra days of working capital a month. And what I mean by that is before we were using this, we were having checks. We weren't able to close our books out until the 18th or the 19th of the month. By pushing our tenants onto this platform with reminders and having it right in their hands, we've typically closed out our books the 5th or the 6th of the month. So just kind of getting the money in faster and having a two-way dialogue with our tenants in one platform, that's been huge for us and something that we're relying on really heavily during this time when we think that collections will be a little more difficult or significantly more difficult. And Alex said you can continue. I just wanted to jump in on that because I think that's relevant for this slide.
Yep. Cool. So the first thing I want to talk about is rent collection. And, Austin kind of touched on this previously, but, the problem you're dealing with analog methods or even things like Venmo are the late payments, manually inputting the cash and checks into your accounting system, whether that be, a paper ledger, or QuickBooks, anything like that. And then there's, of course, the opportunity to misplace checks or cash. There's no way of enforcing late fees. And of course, the manual accounting, which I already said. So ultimately, by bringing this online into a more app-based system, you can enforce late payments and late fees, which is really great. Ultimately, bringing in increased number of revenue. And in these platforms, you can actually customize the late fee rules, whether that's a percentage fee or a flat fee. The other thing that's really great, specifically about being an app-based system rather than an online website, is that tenants get direct notifications to their phone. So just like you would get a news update from CNN or ESPN or a text message, tenants are getting reminders for late rent directly on the home screen of their smartphone. So we find that this is really helpful, especially during a situation like this. And those notifications and the late fee enforcement and the culmination of all these features and capabilities end up helping landlords collect rent twice as fast, kind of like Austin was saying, helping to close the books a little bit quicker and getting access to that working capital faster. So that's really at the core of a lot of these platforms, and it's certainly at the core of our platform. Especially on the tenant side, is really just making it super easy for tenants to log on, click one button, and make their rent payment that goes directly into your operating account or any bank account that's connected for that matter. The next thing I want to touch on is maintenance. This is obviously a big part of the job as well, and kind of going from different types of technology to a technology like ours. The problem really is decentralized communications, and that's SMS, emails, different text messages, and things like that, which end up being very hard to keep track of. If you need to ever reference kind of a maintenance issue or dispute that happened between you and a tenant, it can sometimes be hard to go back, 6 months, 8 months, a year in the past through an email inbox and ultimately be able to find that communication. Same thing goes for text messages. And so that's really been, a big request from our customers is how can we centralize these types of communications with our tenants? And really the solution for us has been basically making instant messaging possible between the property manager's back end and the tenant's front end app. So essentially, landlords and tenants can have a quick one-to-one instant message chat that goes directly again on their smartphone. And it's really great because you're able to keep organized by having tickets in the back end, and you can be able to search through them really easily. So you can search about the topic, search for who it's from, and it's kind of just this ongoing log of communication that of course can be easily referenced. So that's really been a really great thing to have as a result of technology and how it's kind of coming into the space. Anything to add there, Austin, and how maintenance has helped, having these maintenance features has helped Amicus specifically?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is like it helps us with the accountability of our managers. So we operate in 4 markets, and a big thing for us is having fast service. And before we had this implemented, you'd have tenants call in or text, and it was very difficult to manage the communication. Having everything done centrally on a platform, it kind of shows us exactly what's happened with the tenant, how our guys are managing and how they're responding. And what it's done is it's actually helped our process and therefore kind of our customer service is improved, and people are accountable because it's all in kind of plain sight versus side text conversations where someone got the message or they didn't. It just avoids a lot of confusion. One thing I would ask Alex is we've now gone through a few slides. Are there any questions from people listening? And if not, we're happy to continue, but just do want to stress that we want this to be a, you know, a two-way conversation. And if you guys have questions at any point, we're happy to answer.
Yep. I'll leave the floor open for a few secs.
Alex, I think it means you're doing a great job. Everyone's.
Okay, I'll move along here. Cool. All of this kind of culminates in property accounting, and obviously property management tools, especially ones that are all in one, a big kind of point of them is the property accounting aspect, because that's ultimately what saves you all a good chunk of time, you know, at the end of the month specifically. So in Rentroom and in other tools, ultimately, you know, we have things like general ledgers, the ability to pull quick reports. And this is really helpful because all of this stuff is automatically tracked and logged, especially if your tenants are paying through the mobile app or our website. And so it makes it really easy on you guys, so that at the end of the month, all you need to do is pull a P&L, pull an owner's report, and ultimately just send those out, either to your accountant, or if you do your own accounting, that's, you know, available to you. And so all this stuff is in real time, which is great because that's really the benefit of being on a cloud service. A lot of the other, you know, property management services, Rent Manager as an example, hosts a lot of data on premises, meaning that you have to have your own servers in your office or your home that hosts all the data on these platforms. And a lot of the times it's hard to access it, whether that be on your mobile phone or if you're not in your office. So this is really nice to be able to just pull it up on your smartphone and get access to the data from any place. And it's specifically helpful to just look in at the numbers on a, you know, daily, weekly, monthly basis. So that's been really big for our customers, and big in terms of getting people to transition from you know, analog methods like paper ledger, or kind of, you know, siloed online accounting tools like QuickBooks, because ultimately then that creates the, you know, issue of double entry accounting. So that's kind of the problem and the solution for the accounting side. Leasing. This is one of my favorite things about kind of bringing things digital. Ultimately, kind of managing listings online can be a bit of a pain. So if you want to list out to, you know, whether that be one listing site or 20 listing sites, like you're going to ultimately have to fill out a lot of different website forms, a lot of different listing information, and be able to remember and go back to actually manage those listings on the variety of websites. But on, you know, our all-in-one tool, and a couple other all-in-one tools, you have the ability to actually push out vacancies to a multitude of different websites with just one click. So it's nice in the sense that you do not need to enter in information into several different sites. It's just one site, one click, one listing. And ultimately, if people fill out, by people, I mean prospective tenants, fill out any of those forms, whether it be Zillow, you know, Rent Hop, Street Easy, Hot Pads, all that good stuff. Whether anyone fills out a form on those websites, you'll be able to get the information back into the platform without having, again, to fish through email, to fish through text, to do all those, you know, kind of task-heavy activities. And so, you know, but as you can see on the screenshot on the right, you know, it gives them the email, the information, the phone number, kind of the property that they're interested in, and then ultimately being able to screen that that tenant via TransUnion, Smart Move, and it kind of gives you that credit check, background check, eviction, all that good stuff. And then you can ultimately drop a lease for that prospective tenant that they can sign directly on the platform, which is another great time saver and feature for people kind of doing this at scale, and for people that want to save time. So that's really the leasing side of things. And, you know, it's really helpful because people find that they're able to fill their vacancies much faster and get a lot more eyeballs on their vacant property than they would if they were doing this on a manual basis. So kind of just talking about some industry trends, and referencing some studies from real estate blogs or organizations about real estate technology. I'll mention 3 points. The first being that Millennial and Gen Z are currently the largest groups renting right now. And because of that, that makes property managers and owners' jobs a little bit more interesting in terms of being able to cater to that audience. Obviously, they've grown up with apps. They've grown up with the ability to hop on a website and do just about anything. So it's important that people like us and people in the industry are able to quickly adopt this type of technology so that they can quickly pay their bills, so that you can ultimately get your money on time. Ultimately, on point two, this type of automation is going to be really important, because the fact of the matter is that you guys are busy enough as property managers, and you don't really need to spend time knocking on doors, answering, going on site to answer frivolous maintenance needs. A lot of the times these things can be done remotely, via instant chat, or get the payment done digitally. So it's really about automation and giving you guys time back, so that you can spend greater amounts of time on things that are more important to you and your business. And then the last thing that I'll mention is the kind of idea of having tech integrations and amenity support for multifamily properties that may not have amenities built in. One thing that I did not necessarily cover in the presentation was, the deal feature that's built into Rentroom. We, as a company, have national and local partnerships with firms like Casper Mattress, Live Loci, which is a direct-to-consumer bracelet company, and then in local markets where we have scale, we have access to local gyms, yoga studios, restaurants, all that good stuff, where we're giving access to tenants, good deals where they can save money there. And that's ultimately important to specifically the Millennial and Gen Z generation. And it can be helpful to you as well, if you don't have a gym in your building, if you don't, have, if your units don't rent with high-speed internet, things like that. So we're finding that people are kind of using Rentroom as a platform to say that they kind of have amenity light buildings. So one thing that we found, or 3 things, I guess, that we found in the industry is that, there's 3 reasons ultimately why property managers and owners have been somewhat slow to adopt technology. It's not because they don't really see the value. It's because of cost, ease of use, and ultimately security. So on the point of cost, incumbents in the space ultimately are charging very high monthly fees. In a lot of cases, that can be, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, just in the form of subscription fees. And then there's other fees as well for outbound payments, inbound payments, fees to list properties, fees to cut outbound checks, things like that. So it can really add up for property managers. And in addition to that, there's also minimums that managers have to meet in terms of units that they bring on to other platforms. So that can be a barrier to entry. 2 would be kind of ease of use and the onboarding process. A lot of these tools really aren't super easy to use. Can be hard to navigate, hard to learn. Everyone in your organization will need time to get trained on these systems. So that's been another big reason. And then the onboarding process is also another big barrier. Onboarding can take a lot of time on your side, from cobbling data together, getting tenant information, property information, and then getting everything to whatever provider it is. And then they take their time, in most cases, months to actually get your instance up and running. So that can be another big barrier to entry. And then, of course, customer support. Especially if you're, small, medium landlord, you may not get the attention that you're looking for, especially in the first 3 months of you using a new platform, and that can obviously be frustrating for people. And then the last thing is just the whole security aspect of bringing things online. Because a lot of folks have been doing things manually or doing it via Venmo or whatever the case may be, taking that additional step and trusting a company and a platform with some sensitive data is another barrier. That being said, we at Rentroom feel like we kind of cover all these barriers. Being that our cost is low, we feel like we're easy to use. We can onboard within 24 hours. Our customer support team is available 24/7 and answers the phone directly. We don't have, email queues or chat bots or things of that nature. And then on the point of security, we've partnered up with some of the biggest and best payment processing companies, Stripe being one of them and Dwolla being the other. And then being built on Google Cloud and being built on very new secure technology is something that we really pride ourselves on. So that's really that slide. And then kind of just the last thing is just incorporating the technology is really a win-win for tenants and for landlords. Tenants are really looking to use technology, and landlords, although sometimes hesitant, can really benefit from automating a lot of tasks and really having kind of that better line of communication with the tenant and being able to offer those levels of customer service and the services that the tenants are using. So that's really the summary and the presentation. I'd like to open it up for questions if folks have them. And before we do that, though, Austin, do you have any kind of closing thoughts?
Yeah, no, happy to talk more about collections and kind of the rulings that we've been following pretty closely. Something that we've been monitoring is obviously really tough time for a lot of consumers, and I don't know how many of the people in the audience are actually student housing operators, but pretty unprecedented with campuses shutting down. So the method that we're trying to take is we're very understanding of the situation. We have payments too. So I think and according to the law, like there's no evictions or anything like that. Not that we would be, but we're really trying to build up rapport with our tenants and set them up on payment plans. Because we see that, they'll have some issues with this month, but I think what we can do and kind of get some sort of concession is giving them more time to pay, but keeping them on the hook is something that we are planning to do. So if there's anyone who has questions more on that, happy to go into more detail. But that's, I'm sure, a main concern on at least on my mind, but most landlords out there is how we're going to collect rent.
And I can also unmute folks if they have a question. I'm going to just put some stuff into the chat, and if anyone has a question, feel free to respond in the chat, and then I can unmute if you're unsure of how to do that.
If there aren't any questions, thank you very much for joining. If you have any that come to you at a later point, Alex, do they have our email information?
Yeah. We'll also probably follow up after the call and just provide the deck and some other information if it's of interest.
All right. Thank you again, guys, and please don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to speak to anyone offline.
Thank you.